I'm about to show you how to get rid of brain fog based on research I've done to help handle the problem for myself and the actions that I've taken. And I knew I had to make a decision and go into this 100% because brain fog, I learned when left untreated, is likely to get worse. And since I had it pretty bad, that means your focus could continue to fade the way mine was fading. And you may wind up failing exams that you want to pass, because I've struggled with exams and learning that language that you dream about speaking fluently. Well, I remember when I lived in Berlin, which has some very, very dark weather, I had to go to extraordinary means to be able to continue learning that language. And it continued feeling like a slog no matter what I did until I started to take the research that I read and the actions that we're going to talk about today very, very seriously. And the worst thing of all, I get emails about this all the time from people around the world that they're forgetting the names of people they just met, but even forgetting the names of their loved ones. And if you don't take care of brain fog, it can just get harder and harder to retrieve even the most familiar information. But the very, very good news is that you can reduce the impact of brain fog. You can possibly even eliminate it. Now, I have at one point eliminated it, I think, probably 100%. But I did at one point have to make some changes that brought it back a little bit. And now I'm more in a maintenance mode, but I'm still in a really good spot. So in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how that I've worked to resolve brain fog in a step-by-step manner. And I'm going to give you a 7-day routine that you can start benefiting from immediately and then scale as you repeat it over time. And if you really like, I'll give you a worksheet that you can work with to just make it so simple. And I know some people are struggling, so just having something you can follow, print out, check off is going to be very, very powerful for you. Now, this is very, very important though. The experiences and what I've been doing, and I'm going to share with you, is educational. It's not medical advice. If your symptoms are new, if they're severe, if they're worsening, or just the fact that you have them at all, go see a clinician and discuss everything that I'm going to suggest to you before you do any of it with a doctor. And this is not just me saying that because of the algorithms. Years ago, as I discussed in my book, The Victorious Mind, getting proper advice is the key. And all of the experiments that I did that I talk about in this book, I went and saw doctors first. So this is not just mouth service. It's literally what I did. And I really benefited from it, quite frankly. But I was also asking some of the questions that, you may not know to ask until that you go through this video, because researching solutions is what I've always tried to do. And it is really, really important. Even if you don't feel like it, you've got to take that step because you're going to have a better conversation with your doctor, and you must. Okay. So if you're ready to reduce the impact of brain fog on your life, keep listening because we're taking a deep dive into what brain fog is and how to beat it and how to have that really, really fantastic conversation with your doctor that's going to get you personalized advice that really hits the targets that you need. Now, generally, brain fog is defined as mental fuzziness. And the symptoms, you're probably already aware of them, but this is one of the problems, is that sometimes people don't actually have the symptoms for the name that they're using. So it can be mental exhaustion. It can be reduced cognitive ability, poor concentration, feeling spaced out or having a foggy head. It can be long-term memory loss. And another way to define it, I think, is really, really important. It comes from the scientist, I think you say his name, Karan Kverno. And he says that it is the subjective experience of neuroinflammation. And this is important. There's something inflamed where? In the brain, hence brain fog. But the brain is not alone. It's also part of your entire body. So it can be that you're mistaking things because you have inflammation in other parts of your body, which is all the more reason to go and see a doctor. So take note of this, because one of the problems with memory, for example, is that if you have any kind of pain, it's very difficult to pay attention to information. But that doesn't mean your brain is inflamed, and it doesn't mean it's brain fog. And when we talk about reduced cognitive ability, what's that? Well, it can be things like struggling to complete tasks that are normally very, very deep in your procedural memory. So you might have been quite good at a skill and you just did it on autopilot, but now all of a sudden you kind of just don't know how to do it anymore, or you struggle to do it, etc. So you got to watch out for those kinds of things. And poor concentration, I think we all understand what that is, but it's not always just about focus. It can involve difficulties in sitting still, for example. And you might notice that you lose things more often, which, you might not immediately associate to focus, but according to some definitions and some research, it is. When we talk about being spaced out, I'm spaced out quite a lot of the time. I'm known to be quite sharp and a good thinker and so on. But I was talking with somebody the other day, and I was saying I'm rereading your book because I don't know that I remembered it all correctly. And he's just like, "What do you mean you don't remember it correctly?" I'm like, "Hey, my name's Dr. Anthony Metivier from magneticmemorymethod.com. We talk about better memory, not perfect memory, and we're also modest and humble, so we check the facts." But I mind wander. I sometimes feel disconnected with reality and so on, and so that is something to really, really think about. Like, where does that come from? And some of the tactics we're going to talk about has helped me reduce that, but it's not gone entirely. So, being easily distracted, getting confused and so on, you want to think, what might be causing this? Now, when I was on the hunt for a brain fog cure, I experienced a lot of these symptoms, and a lot of it was exaggerated by a particular medicine I had to take at that particular time, especially when I was living in Germany. So it wasn't just like weather issues, light issues, etc. But I asked my doctor about alternatives, and it turned out that he looked at all of the various factors in my life, and he found that a complete dietary overhaul was probably going to allow me to stop taking this medication that was giving me so much brain fog. And then his suggestion was to also do some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And really, very, very quickly, the brain fog I was having, even in the darkness of Berlin winters, I was able to concentrate much, much better on demand. So this is all the more reason to regularly visit your doctor and discuss everything in context. Because in my case, a medication that was no longer needed, that medication was a huge driver of the symptoms. It wasn't everything, because some dietary changes I've changed in the year since have brought back some brain fog. But this is, just the beauty of really, really being involved in the conversation. Because a lot of people these days, they're just getting automated prescription renewals, and they're not reviewing things often enough, doing blood panels and all of that to really get dialed in. So there are many, many lifestyle culprits that you can look at and talk about with a doctor, like lack of exercise, using a computer in bed instead of, using a reading in bed protocol with a physical book. There's all kinds of dietary things. People eat foods that actually harm their brains, but also harm other parts of their body and create inflammation. And when you have pain, then you can be distracted, and that's not necessarily brain fog, but it can seem very similar. Then there's dehydration, insufficient sleep, all kinds of stress and anxiety. There can be depression, etc. So you really want to look at a lot of things that can lead to this neuroinflammation. Even air pollution has been studied for how it contributes to brain fog in different parts of the world. And I've been to places with a lot of air pollution, and I noticed immediately that my concentration went down. So yeah, consider getting air filters if you can, because that can help. All right, let's talk about a 7-day routine. And before we do, if you're new here and you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast, if you're listening to it, get subscribed. And for the love of memory, hit that thumbs up so that I can continue sharing this with you. Every single person who gets even just the littlest, tiniest amount of improvement helps raise the ships for everybody around the world. I really believe that, and I've seen it time after time. People just going from strength to strength because they've been able to learn about how to optimize their brain and their memory and so forth. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of it, but I couldn't do it without you. All right. So in terms of the 7-day routine, again, the following suggestions are educational only. They're not medical advice. It's what I do, though. And so see a clinician, and the clinician may give you even better ideas. Because when I ran some of this stuff past my own doctor, he was just like, dude, what about this? What about that? And so forth. So it's really, really important, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you were to just start with day 1, basically this is what I did when I started to get into this, which was to reset and get some simple wins. And the first thing that I did was to start hydrating more. And one thing that I learned is that your body doesn't really like cold water. Apparently it won't even absorb it until that your body warms it up. So if you just drink room temperature water or even warmed up water, you're going to absorb it much, much better. Then place a book that you want to read on your pillow. And, this might seem kind of silly, but it'll come in handy later. And it's one thing that has helped me get so much reading done, but also just have a better nighttime ritual. Then keep hydrating throughout the day. Get as much morning light as you can on your skin, as much of your skin as possible. I often get my shirt off and sit and do the front and the back in the sun, and it's really, really helpful. Then take a walk if you can, or, get sun while you're walking. Try and see if you can't cut off caffeine at least 8 hours before you sleep. I like 100% chocolate, so this is kind of hard for me. But the memory benefits of 100% chocolate, they're just fine and don't have to be enjoyed 8 hours before sleep. But it is a little bit of a temptation for me. But anyway, that's what I try to do, is maybe no later than 2 p.m. or so have chocolate. Then while you're at the end of your day, journal and repeat in your own words something you've learned during the day. This is what Benjamin Franklin did, and he formed a lot of long-term memories and a lot of mental connections this way. Then here's where that book on your pillow comes in. You're already prepared with a physical book, and you can choose it much easier and put aside any screens because you're prepared. And the kind of book that you choose is interesting. I sometimes will just read mindless novels. Other times I read really heavy philosophy. I try to keep just one book by my bed. I used to have piles of books around, but then what would end up happening is then I would read a couple pages and then switch and so forth. And that's a good thing to do under other circumstances. It's a strategy called interleaving. But I found that it's actually better to just have one book in the bedroom and then only read that. And it just, if you get bored or whatever, pushing through actually helps with going to sleep because you're bored and then you just go, okay, so now it's time to put that book away. But the key is that it's a physical book and that there's no device around and there's actually no alternative. You just stick with that reading. All right. So now day 2, we're going to start to fuel and we're going to review and have some rhythm and repetition. So keep with the hydration, keep with the daylight protocols, and then add to your walk some hip and shoulder circles. And, this is something there's lots of videos about, but, you're just rotating your shoulders around, etc., and wiggling your hips around. It's not that sophisticated, but it's going to just give you a little bit more movement. Then start to add a memory drill. Now, the first memory drill I'm going to suggest for you is just a simple alphabetical drill using the peg word method. And there's a whole training on the peg word method that you can look into. But basically, it's just A, B, C, D, all the way up to Z, and then name a figure, a famous figure. So for A, I often use Adam West for Batman. And then I get up to Z, it's like Billy Zane, who was in Titanic. And this might seem like nothing, but it's a recall exercise. And it's very, very powerful to do. And if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, get a pair of dice, roll it, and then if you get a 2, well, then you have to say 2 figures for each letter of the alphabet. If you get a 3, you have to do 3. Or if you get 6, you got to do 6. All right, the morning is here. I'm feeling a little groggy, but I got my warm water. At home, we call it Bai Kai Shui. Beautiful name in Mandarin for warmed up water. And if memory serves, I rolled a 2 and a 2, which means politicians. And I have to come up with 2 politicians per letter of the alphabet, which is a little bit challenging, but Tony Abbott here in Australia and Anthony Albanese is the current prime minister, I believe. So B, we would then go and C, D, E, etc. as part of the exercise. If I'd rolled a 10 and it was, I don't know, the number 4, then I would have to come up with an asp and a alligator and an anaconda. Got a lot of snakes here. Aardvark. That would be the letters for animals starting with A, and then go to B, and it would be bear and bat and basilisk, I think. Well, maybe that's a mythological creature. But in any case, you just work to what the game gives you. And if you can't get all of the numbers or you falter or whatever, you're not familiar with the category, whatever, it's just you go through it. You do that push and, do the moves, get your body involved even while you're doing it. So if you can't think of something,
Like say you get to C and your category is musicians, and you're like Chopin and then Chris Isaac, you're trying to find that third. Rather than give up, just move a little and see what comes to mind. Corey Hart, right? So it's totally possible to just push, and don't always give up just because you don't get it right away. And you can always come back to it. That's the beautiful thing about the alphabet, is you go forward and backwards. Now, another thing is I'm wearing these red headphones. I'm deliberately listening to music while I go through the exercise, but also music that's against my genre preferences. So I find these podcasts that play music that's, I won't call any out, but music that I don't normally listen to, and then I'm trying to think through the distraction. This is a bit inspired by my friend and 3-time USA memory champion, John Graham, who's been on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast a couple times. And we were just chatting the other day. He's going to be a character in the 3rd Memory Detective novel. He's mentioned in part 2, but be a little bit more intensely involved, or at least that's part of the idea, the plan. In any case, that's how the exercise works, and it's really, really good. And yeah, if you want to add that little bit of chaos element, deliberately listen to loud sounds, which is something you can also do while memorizing playing cards, if you know how to memorize a deck of cards. And just kind of go with however you're feeling, but know that the cumulative physical exercise, working on your hydration, making sure that you get out, like it's been raining and it's dark here and there's not that much light, but working on the light anyway, getting out. Light still comes through clouds and so forth, so make sure you're outside and you're getting it, touching your skin and so on, and having that physical book that you read at night so you have limited digital exposure, etc. All that stuff is going to be very, very good, especially when you add memory training into the mix. And just don't make failure an issue. It's going through the motions of the memory training that matters in the end. So powerful. All right, where are we at here? C, politicians. Let's start with C.
Then, continue with the caffeine cutoff, continue journaling, but now add a little bit more of a journaling protocol. At the end of the day, try to recall some of the same figures from the alphabet that you named. So if you had Jack Nicholson for J, then write that down. And it's a really, really powerful thing to do. And then continue reading a physical book before bed. When you get to day 3, we're going to expand your focus now. So you're going to continue all the hydration in the daylight, the walking protocols, a little bit of the circles with your shoulders and all that sort of stuff. Now, take some time to learn the mnemonic linking method and apply it to learning a fact, such as a nutritional detail that will help motivate any dietary changes that are recommended by your doctor, who you should have seen by now. And then while you're journaling, jot out that dietary fact that you learned and use reflective thinking to expand your plans for self-improvement. Now, reflective thinking is a big topic, and the linking method is a big topic. I'm going to have a resource for you where you can download all of these various tutorials and make a little program for yourself over 7 days. So the download of this challenge that I have for you with the checklist will have the links that can give you all these tutorials that I'm talking about. Let's go to day 4 now. I want you to bump up your movement. And so you're going to continue the morning protocols. You're going to start walking more briskly and try to find an outdoor gym or a tree branch where you can hang to improve your shoulder mobility. They're called dead hangs. And while you're dead hanging, you can either just count. Often I count, but sometimes I do my alphabetical exercise. So I'll be thinking A, Adam West, who played Batman. B, Christian Bale, who played Batman. C, is there a C who played Batman? Yeah, Christian Bale. And I'll play these alphabetical games just while I'm hanging there. Sometimes also, this is just a recent thing that I heard from somebody. I'll just actually apply numbers to various parts of the body. And it's just a fun thing to do while I'm hanging there. And just try to lengthen your spine, basically, is what I'm saying. And it's just going to give you more circulation throughout your body. And while you're hanging, so that it's not just dead time, even though it's a dead hang, you can go through one of these mental exercises and start to practice at some point the memorization of names. So that exercise of A to Z, it can get longer and longer and longer by memorizing more names of more people. And this is going to open up new neural pathways in your brain because you're making new connections by doing this. And this is going to help resolve some of that lack of focus because you're exercising your brain. Now on day 5, let's focus on reducing our cognitive load. So I've just talked about increasing cognitive load by memorizing more things, but we also want to increase our ability to deal with cognitive load by also practicing reducing it. So following the morning protocols that you've already gone through, declutter one area in your home because clutter drains attention. And this is really, really important. If you have a regular decluttering ritual so that you, like I just did it with my desk earlier today, it's so amazing. Every Sunday, I try to declutter my desk. And the more cluttered it gets, the more brain power has to go to dealing with that desk, which means I have less brain power for other things. So it's a fog that's self-induced, but it can be regularly cleared up. So that's what I want you to work on and try to, whether it's day 5 or day 6 or whatever it is in your schedule as you go forward, have a decluttering day. And it's really going to do a great thing to reduce cognitive load in your daily life. Now, as a general study, also look into how you can reset your dopamine levels. In the resource, there'll be a link to a full tutorial all about that. And there's 2 different kinds of dopamine that we get into, phasic dopamine and then tonic dopamine. And tonic dopamine is, wow, once you get that nailed in, you're going to be much, much happier and have cruising altitude in life. Also, just because, why not? We're going to add some fun that's going to reduce some cognitive load. Call a friend on this day to chat, to reminisce, but also talk about the good times as a memory exercise. You don't have to tell your friend that you're using them for memory exercise, but that's the deal. It's going to be a great way to get your brain moving and remind yourself of wonderful things and spend some time with someone precious to you. And then later that day, journal about your experience with that friend and try to find some more memories with that friend, or run the alphabet and think of some other friends and write down their names, write down at least one experience with each and relive as much of it as you can, really thinking through the neighborhood, the areas that you've been with or their homes, etc. And this can allow you to gather some new memory palaces, etc. And on day 6, now we're going to ramp things up in a very, very precious way. I want you to sit down after you've completed your morning hydration, your sunlight exposure, your exercise protocol, and I want you to list the meaningful skills you've always wanted to learn. Commit in writing to tackling one of them for the next 90 days. It could be a musical instrument. It could be learning a language. It could be memorizing poetry, whatever it is. And then revisit that commitment later in the evening and spend 10 to 15 minutes preparing some memory palaces that you're going to use for this new meaningful learning challenge. And if you already own a book related to the challenge, get it, put it on your pillow and read it. Or order one before you start your computer curfew. And then as soon as you get it, start reading it so that you have a ecosystem related to your meaningful challenge. And now you've done these exercises where you've called a friend, you've reminisced about various friendships, you've listed out a bunch of friends and locations. Now you have memory palaces to help you memorize the information related to the language you want to learn or the musical instrument, musical theory, etc. Whatever it is you're doing. It could be computer programming, whatever. And keep repeating this week after week after week, and you're going to make so much progress. Then on day 7, you're going to be like God in the Bible and rest, but review and adjust. And after completing the morning protocol on day 7, journal about what you feel helped the most over the past 6 days, and then identify one thing you can change over the week to come. And see if you can't get in touch with another friend, share your biggest win, and on this day, wind down early and practice meditation. Literally put aside any reading or anything like that, lay down on your back, take a pose where your hands are just by your side, close your eyes, and try to do nothing literally nothing. Now, if you need some help with doing nothing, the Victorious Mind is all about how I learned to stop my thoughts so that I literally could just sit there and do nothing. It was very, very difficult for me, and I didn't even believe it was possible. Now, the way that I got there was quite robust and rigorous, but dealing with brain fog helped me do it because I memorized a lot of Sanskrit that helps you stop your thoughts. And it's helped other people who've read The Victorious Mind stop their thoughts as well, even though they didn't believe it's possible. It is possible, and you can do it. All right. I hope this 7-day protocol has helped you. If you want a downloadable worksheet version with links to various sources and additional routines that I follow, I filmed my actual Qigong process so you can see what it looks like. And I have links for you that shows you the places where I learned it so you can learn from the actual source, because I'm not a teacher of these things. But nonetheless, you'll see what I do. And there's even a little bonus there where I talk about how to memorize the moves. It's a resource that links to, you'll just have so many things that are going to help you. Maybe you won't be able to use all of it, but if you want to get that, it's in my Magnetic Clarity Kit. Go to magneticbrainmethod.com/MCK for Magnetic Clarity Kit, and it is going to help you battle brain fog even more than what we talked about today. And if you're really interested in something that I still do to this day, I mean, I change things and so forth, but overall, I love this whole realm. It's been really, really powerful for my focus. It's called neurobics. I have an older video you can watch on YouTube. Stick around. I'll have the link up on the screen and down in the resources below. And you can go through those neurobic protocols as well. They're very, very fun, very impactful, very powerful. And I've added one more unique neurobic exercise to the Magnetic Clarity Kit. And, well, the more the merrier. And just make a study of how others have healed their brains. The research is there. You want to always run it past a doctor, of course, but get into this kind of stuff and make sure you're very, very educated and informed. And when you start putting these protocols into place, you'll be amazed by what it can do for you. Because, like I said, I've had to do some things dietarily that do increase the brain fog, but this has helped me maintain as much clarity as possible. Feels really great in the physical body, and it feels great in the mind. And the mind and the body go together in so many ways, which is where neurobics comes in. So thanks as always. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up, for being subscribed. Stick around, watch that training on neurobics as you are on your way to getting the Magnetic Clarity Kit. And until we have a chance to speak again, thank you again, and keep yourself magnetic.